No.
Okay, so should we get started?
Yes.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for coming today to this conversation club. Today we're talking about modern and contemporary art. And these, of course, are two different things, but oftentimes they're grouped together. We're going to discuss why. We're going to discuss certain pieces of this contemporary art. And we're going to discuss, well, what art is, what the modern interpretation is, and a lot of other things that are interesting, I hope. So let's get started with our conversation club today on this world of art. The first question let's discuss is, well, it's not really a question, it was the homework assignment, and that was to share this piece of modern or contemporary art. So who wants to go first about this? Who wants to go first? Elia, Denise, any volunteers?
Okay, I can be first.
Okay, Denise, please. Do you want to send us a link, or how do you want to share your art?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I will send a link. Please wait a moment. I try to copy links and.
No problem, no problem. We
Yes.
definitely can take time for technical issues. It's not even a technical issue. It's just coordination. Yeah, you can't upload a file into Google Chat.
No,
you can send a link.
I want to send a link. Yes.
Okay.
This is two links.
Two links. Okay.
Yes. First is a description from site of Berlin Museum, and second is a portfolio of creators, and I found that all part of this video are public available. So this is video installation manifesto. I find it on. I try to remember, as I can't pronounce it correctly. One of Berlin Museum of Contemporary Art. This is video installation, and core idea was a specific representation of idea of manifest as artifact, probably as some conception. Very impressive thing that this installation contains from set of, as I remember, more than 13 different videos. All video represent one of the well-known cultural manifest, historical, literature, or some political movements. Also, this was created as some short video scene. All of this scene are synchronized and shown at the one time on different screens. And core person, central person of all this video parts is one actress. So idea that most impressive for me was trying to represent that in history we have different ideas was expressed as manifest. But in each manifest, the most important thing is a representation itself. It's not a content. It's some trying to extract idea, to broadcast idea on a people. And it is marked by spatial mixing of all these manifests at one place and with one central person in videos. It's hard to explain, but it's really impressed much in if you bring real in the middle of this installation. So to me, it's very interesting idea, and it's a perfect implementation.
Definitely, definitely, it is. I mean, it's exactly. I think it also brings into discussion the whole definition of art, right? Because, you know, this is something that is fluid in the videos, these films. Again, the pictures, the photography, it's something that we see in a different way. Whereas I think that, you know, a lot of times we think of art as the very traditional classical understanding of art. And that's something that when we look at these modern installations, these exhibitions, we can see how much, like you were mentioning, Denise, about that interpretation, the whole experience of art is something that is so important in the contemporary understanding of art. What about you, Elia? Do you have something to share with us? You better have done your homework.
You know, as usual, I haven't done my homework because I just sat a few minutes ago and understood that I'm very far from modern art and contemporary art in the whole. But I remembered only Modigliani works because they're really interesting, but unfortunately I have never seen the original of them, so I can't share that expression from watching the original variant, unfortunately. And I can't share some specific exact art of his work because he made lots of portraits, and I think they are very interesting, and because they look, I don't know how to say that, recognizable, and almost always unfinished, and almost in all his works there is something to think about, so that's why I like his works. But I should mention again that really I'm very far from modern art.
It's so, yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's interesting. I mean, but are you into classical art at all, Elia?
Yes, because for me it is very difficult maybe to understand because like it was in that video, the example with that piece of art that everyone said, oh, it's wonderful, it's great. So there is lots of things, and actually it was just painted part from the painted how is it, apron,
No, canvas.
canvas, yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Just different. I was thinking about what to share for this thing, and I decided I have actually several friends who are artists, and I guess you can consider them to be contemporary artists just because of what they work with and their conceptions of different things. So I decided to share one from one artist who is actually based in Moscow. His name is Roma Sakin, and I've been to several of his exhibitions, and it's always been a really interesting experience to go to these exhibits. And I have to be honest and say that I wouldn't probably go to them on my own. The only reason why I went is because it was my friend who was participating and who invited me to go. Although I will also say that at each time I went to one of these exhibits or saw any of the installations or creations that he made, they were definitely a thinking experience, if that makes sense. I think that's like what Denise, that's what Denise was talking about. That whole ability of this contemporary art to make you think about what it is that you're seeing. So I'm going to send you the link. It's a picture of a sculpture that was made. You can open it up. Tell me if it works for you. It's on Facebook, and it's a publicly shared link from someone else. It's not from the author himself, but from someone else. He's tagged in it. You guys see it? Yes? No? Denise? Ella, can you view this?
Yes, I have copied it.
Okay. Denise, are you seeing this?
Yes, I loaded it. Also,
Yeah.
I tried to Google some other works.
Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting. This is the sort of thing that makes you think, right? Because here you are at a contemporary art exhibition, and you're looking at this piece of contemporary art, and you're thinking, well, what exactly is this? And honestly, I don't, everyone, of course, is going to have their own interpretation to that. And, oftentimes we would discuss different friends, different people that were there, what exactly this is, details, that sort of thing. And, it's one of those things you're looking at. To me, and this is my interpretation, you're in some sort of setting, right? You're in some sort of building, some sort of area. This is being flagged to your attention. So in theory, this could be a museum, right? In theory. Inside, what do you see? You've got the chair. Maybe it's an exhibition room, and you've got this huge ball, and you're supposed to look at this ball. Again, I think it's very much representative of what that contemporary art is, right? You're here, you're looking at something, you're supposed to get a feeling from it. What exactly is that feeling? There's so many things. It's not big for the room. It's not small for the room. It, just fits there. That's the thing you're supposed to be focusing on. But what about the other things that are present? These are all kind of interesting things for me. Like I said, this is my friend, so this is probably the reason why I chose this particular, not this, but a piece from him in general. But, there are lots of different things that this particular artist has done. And again, each one makes us think. I think that's, but definitely what you were saying, Denise. It makes us think about what it is we're seeing, about art as an experience, more than art as some beautiful thing. As you were mentioning, Elia, when you're thinking about these canvas works, when you've got those pieces that are maybe timeless and they've been, on display for, in some cases, centuries. It's what is art. It's how is art too. Not just what is art, but how is art. And again, I think with contemporary art, it's the experience that means a lot as well. So let's get us to the second question. What is the difference between modern art and contemporary art? Elia, what is the difference? This was in our reading, but what do you think? I mean, from what you've read and from what you know.
Yes, I think that's the main difference, as it was mentioned in the video, that in classical art there was also a piece of manifest in each work, but it was not um, instead of the visual quality. So the visual quality should stay realistic. So in modern art, I think people don't think about the visuality and the visual quality. They maybe think more about the sense. And I think, yes, the value of art now is not in the masterpiece or the painting, not so much. But much more that in that um, possibility to make other people think about something, touch the soul, touch the heart of the audience. So if the artist able to do that, I think his works will be successful. But still, I think there is lots of marketing here. So I don't know.
Okay, Elia, are you comparing contemporary art with classical art? Was that what you were comparing?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that was a great comparison for that. But the question was modern art and contemporary art, because modern art, as maybe you read in one of the things, there is a difference between what we define as modern art and what is contemporary. Contemporary art is what is going on now. Modern art is more what has been going on in, like, say, the past 100 years or so, like that new movement away from what was classically defined as art. So away from those canvases and away from those schools of artistry that were so, so by the book. So that's the sort of difference between modern and contemporary. They're two different terms. And like I said at the beginning, sometimes we mix those two up. I know I do. I think most of us do. But Denise, what about you? How do you want to define that difference between modern and contemporary art?
As as I remember, in art theory, the most right definition that modern art and contemporary art is different stages of art evolution. But I prefer slightly different explanation, because for me, modern art is mostly some step of classical art evolution after appearing of photography. Because the most vector of classical art evolution was to creation more and more realistic, more and more detailed results. More detailed pictures, more looks like alive sculptures and so on. But after appearing photography, that was very hard to for painters to struggle with real quality photo in realism. So next step was to decrease level of realism, but to try to make art more expressive. But in mostly that was steps on the foundation of classical art. But contemporary art is trying to leave all borders, to create mixes of different styles, trying to find some symbols or some ideas from not from classical art direction, from some outside direction or opposite direction, or even making a new thing by mixing some not meetable in classic art thing. So to me, contemporary art is more about trying to experiment and find what is the core idea of art itself.
Yeah, that's right. Did you study art history, or I mean, how you're very well versed in this, Denise? I'm curious. Did you study at university, or just a hobby, or what is your background with art?
I have a very good friend. He's a modern video artist. He educates sometimes in Vienna Fine Art University and then in Moscow Photography School Rodchenko. And we discuss. I discuss with him modern art a lot of time, because 5 years ago I was far away from ideas of contemporary art, and I have no basis how to perceive, how to understand what is it, how it can work, how I can perceive it.
Okay, yeah, it's very interesting. I like this. It's good to have this. It's good to have this background, and it's good to have this interest. I mean, because it is something that really does make you analyze and think and really appreciate so much. Like what you're saying, yeah. I mean, that's an interesting. You have a very thorough understanding of that difference. I would say the major difference between that modern and contemporary, like you were mentioning, it's like that stage, that modern art is that stage for changing, for setting this new sort of standard or lack of standard. I don't know what the right word is, what the right terminology is. And contemporary, of course, is what's going on now. So what are your general views on modern art? Denise, what are your general views on modern art?
So in short, I explained it in my previous speech.
Yeah, but generally speaking, I mean, like, do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? What are your general views on it?
Good thing. For me, modern art is now some kind of classic for us. So it's hard to find any people who think that impressionist is a bad artist. The most people now can look to impressionist art with pleasure. Even most of people can perceive Salvador Dali art, for example. So modern art, it's a modern classic probably. It has some basis of how we look on aesthetic now somehow. It's not only, but it's an important part. Also, design of I don't know, goods around us also partially inspired by ideas from modern art. So it's really part of our life. It's some foundment of aesthetic and of nowadays design. It's not even modern.
Yeah. Yeah. Modern art. What about you, Elia? What do you think? What are your initial feelings or general feelings about this modern art?
The feeling is that I've got a bright gap in my education and my life experience because I know very little about that. So I think today I will be listening to you very carefully and try to minimize that large gap, and maybe sometime later I will came to some definition about it.
Okay, all right, that's okay. It's okay. I think, well, personally, when it comes to modern art, I don't know. It's as you were mentioning, Denise. It's like a historical stage of this whole sort of thing, and I appreciate it for. Oh my goodness, what it has opened the doors for in the world of art. And I think for so long humanity understood art as these magnificent sculptures, as these canvas paintings. But modern art has helped us to understand that things don't have to be perfect to be art. And it's helped us to understand things like photography as art. And a lot of other things too, that it's so much about this interpretation, and it's so much of being open to these new ideas. And I think that that's like my general sort of feeling. It's that ability or opening the doors for new things for us, like you were mentioning there. What about your favorite style of modern art? Elliot, do you have a favorite style of modern art?
What styles are there? Do there exist?
Okay, can you open that one link that we sent? Maybe? Modern art. What is modern art?
Um, okay,
Hey, or do you
so
want to?
just
Okay.
just give me some time to
Okay.
think over.
Okay. Okay. In the meantime, you got impressionism. You got post-impressionism. Lots of different options here.
Also, abstractionism, cubism, some latest
Abstract.
yeah, abstract, of course.
Art Nouveau. There are lots of different.
Also, early Soviet constructivism is also modern art.
Yes.
All the most styles before middle of 20th century is mostly modern art.
Mm. Do you want to continue? Do you want to answer the question then, Denise, first? Yes. Why don't you do? Well, Elliot thinks, yeah. What is your favorite style of modern art?
My style is abstractionism and symbolism. For example, it's like some pictures of middle period Picasso, for example. I prefer some readable symbols in picture. It's simpler to me to perceive it, and it give a wide place for interpretation, but give a good start point for interpretation. Because later, pure abstract pictures, it's more about some impression from nowhere. It's harder to get any ideas or any things that could be described by word, for example, for me. So I like symbolism and abstractionism, but somewhere mix of these two styles.
Yeah, interesting. Ella, did you choose one?
Yes, now I saw how can we determine Modigliani works. So his works belong to expressionism, yes,
Expressionism.
expressionism. So as far as I understood that the difference from other divisions, from other things, that it should express something and cause the expression, not only express but the cause um, the expression in those who watch their arts or read, or I don't know, see it in the movie, because expressionism exists in everything as far as I understood, in literature, in cinematography, in architecture. So I think yes, it is more close to me when there are some feelings. So it is the most interesting, and when the piece of art cause that very feelings and that very thoughts.
That's a good answer. I like your answer there, Ella. I do. I'm thinking my favorite style of modern art is probably post-impressionism. I really like the color schemes in this kind of art. These are the ones that, I would happily buy the poster if I went to like a Van Gogh exhibit or a Gauguin or something like that. Those are the sort of postcards that I want to get if I'm going to, take a souvenir or a poster for my wall. Again, it's those colors. I really enjoy that. It's a bit, a bit abstract, but still you've got that real, you've got, this, it's somewhat realistic, but then it's also kind of like working in Photoshop. I don't know. To me, it's like a Photoshop filter or some sort of trick in that. And I really like that. And I think that's when I first started working with Photoshop, that was one of the features that I really found to be fun as, still a child. But it was like that sort of thing, that sort of post-impressionism look where it's realistic, but it's something a little bit skewed. And I kind of like that. I really do appreciate that sort of thing. All right, moving on to our next question, talking about this art. It is, hang on, I'm going to get back because I somehow scrolled away from there we go, from our questions. How would you define contemporary art? Elia, contemporary art, that's, with this new stuff that's out today, that maybe is in the news for being risque or provocative. What do you feel? How do you feel about contemporary art?
Sorry, I was
Elia.
mute. So yes, I was now thought about it because yes, frankly speaking, now I'm thinking that maybe because I live in small merchant town, very far from that very um, some cultural activities connected with some exhibitions and things like that. And while traveling with the whole family, we usually choose also some beach parts just to have a rest. That's why maybe this is really a great gap in my life experience, because I really never thought. The only thing I can just say to you about that very contemporary art is just seeing that very example of your friend's installation. That for me, for my opinion, that the stair is very interesting there, because there is no door at the end of the stair, and it's very interesting things to think about it. So unfortunately, I haven't my experience, so there is nothing to share with you. But it is very good opportunity for me to think about it in future.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely good. Yeah, think about. That's the key idea there. Think about. Denise, what about you? How do you define contemporary art? What do you feel about contemporary art?
Contemporary art is that what is being in art now, what
Yes.
new we have in art
Yeah,
now.
this new world of art, the new stuff.
Yes, and it's hard to create any borders or any strict definition because probably now somewhere somebody creates something which will be out of this definition and out of this border, and it will be also a part of contemporary art. So contemporary art is more about search or understanding what is art, what is the end of definition of art. What is the border of possible wide border of definition of art?
Yes, yes.
And a very interesting and good thing in some I don't know how to in some modern art artifact is a very interesting mix of different styles or placing some art inside other art, because some of video installation also include some references or even some videos of other object that is also art. And sometimes it's like endless onion, because you have one ideas or one artifact wrapped in another form. So that's all of is a contemporary art.
Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking, I mean, yeah, the contemporary art, it's what is going on now, right? It's what makes us think. It's what makes us react. It's what we talk about. You know, it's what we experience. It's something that comes and goes, right? Because, I mean, if we compare it to classical art or even modern art, there are museums and permanent installations usually, or traveling installations, but it's usually a set sort of theme that goes with it. Whereas with contemporary art, we see a lot of fluidness, right? Things are always moving, things are always changing. It's maybe short-term installations that are there for a day or two. You know, they're oftentimes not so long, or even the ones that are longer, maybe they draw more controversy depending on what they might be. And I think that's part of what it is. You know, it's really making us live in the moment that is now, hence that whole contemporary even word. Okay, what do you think about pushing limits? Do you think that contemporary art pushes limits, Denise?
I'm not sure that I understand in these questions pushes in what meaning? Pushes like make limits wider?
No, I mean
Or
pushes limits. It means is it if it's controversy, if it's controversial, is it going too far? Is it trying to,
okay.
you know, like there have been a lot of things that have maybe taken religious motifs and maybe made it a little bit, you know, offensive or something like that. You know, I mean, do you think that, and it's all done in the name of art? Like, do you think that those, yeah.
The hard thing, because the absolutely most, no, I think it's not absolutely all, but absolutely most modern art, it's not it's not necessary to all people watch it, perceive it, and it's not about I don't know. We have no modern art films in main TV channels. We have a very small amount of modern architecture building in the cities. So people meet contemporary arts usually in museums, and people should go to museums for meeting contemporary art, or in a less examples as some street sculptures. But usually all art which is presented publicly on the streets, it's not so provocative. So yes, probably some art for some people it's about pushing limits, but absolutely most part of art is about finding limits, and if it's uncomfortable for people, them can isolate himself from contemporary art of such direction.
Yeah, right. I mean, it is your choice,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
and to me, it's not a worst thing to push limits or to try to find limits, because all human's history it's more about find, broken, and searching new limits. And it's we don't know what will be limits in next 10 or 50 or even 100 years.
Yeah, definitely. Elia, what about you? What do you think? Do you think this contemporary art pushes limits?
No, I don't think so, because the great thing about art, any art, classical, contemporary, modern, doesn't matter, that there is no possibility to lie, and there is no possibility to be a vulgar, or how is it?
Vulgar.
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 Yes, if it is art, it isn't vulgar. And if it is true, if it is honest, so what limits are we talking about then? So I think that is the great thing about any art.
Okay. Yeah. That's fair. That's definitely fair. I think that contemporary art can be controversial. I personally think that it can push limits. I think that that's part of what it is, because it's not about doing everything by the book. It's not about this sort of, oh my goodness, like just following the rules, right? There is so much of it that is about taking it to another level, making us think, as I was mentioning before. That's such an important part of this whole thing. It's making us think about what it is that we are looking at, what it is that we are living, how people are feeling about their surroundings, and again, exploring those sort of emotions and thoughts and everything else that comes with the human experience. So I think it does push limits. It pushes our own limits of what we accept to be art, of what we appreciate as art, and of what we do and don't want art to be like in the future. So I think it does. I think it's a good thing that it does, personally. All right, are there any modern art museums where you live, and what kind of exhibits are featured there? Elia, are there any modern art museums there in Samara?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure about that. Perhaps there are some small art museums of contemporary and modern art, but of course, there is no metropolitan in Samara. So, and I think that New York is the most famous city for and gathers.
Definitely, definitely. New York is filled with this sort of thing.
And that is my dream, to visit somewhere in New York.
Okay, what about you, Denise? You're in Moscow. Tell us about your
Yes,
modern art museums. Yes.
there are a few different places where modern art exhibitions usually placed. The most probably famous place is the Multimedia Art Museum, and it's idea of this museum is presenting of contemporary art. And as I remember, there is no permanent installation, permanent exhibition at all. So this museum usually all time present some limited time exhibition of different art, like photography of photos or pictures or sculptures or some mixed exhibitions. Also, as I remember, in Pushkinsky Museum, sometimes prepare some contemporary, but it's more about pop art, contemporary pop art exhibitions. Like I try to remember, the very well-known Chinese modern artist Tsai Ge-san. That was a few months ago. Very art exhibition. So also there are numerous of smaller galleries and places like Vinzavod or Falcon, where usually some not so wide but probably interesting exhibitions appears sometimes.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, no, I mean, Moscow has definitely got a lot of this stuff going on.
Moscow is not a worldwide center by modern art, but if you want to meet modern art, you can contemporary art, you can do it in Moscow.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Okay, I'm in Split in Croatia, and there are a number of galleries and studios where there are a lot of local artists that are featured. They're usually put together by local artists and their families, because that sort of artistry kind of runs in the family, and people are interested in sharing what they do, and they'll have little studios or galleries somewhere in the old town, and maybe tourists walk by, and there are events that are held, and it's definitely for a specific niche of people. I would say, you have to really kind of want to go to see art if it's something that you're interested in. But yeah, it's definitely something that exists, and the more we talk about this today, the more I feel like I seriously want to go and visit one of these art museums. So anyway, it's good. I looked into them to see which ones they were. I know I've walked by several, but they're very, very small. They're just these little galleries, and so it's not like it's a big experience. Personally, when I really like going to museums, big museums. I like exploring museums, and I personally feel that it's with that abundance of material that I'm able to really appreciate individual things. Again, that's just my sort of personal way, if you want to call it, of doing art. I don't know, not doing art, experiencing art, viewing art, patronizing art. I really like that whole sort of mass, like taking it all in and really finding what of that mass amount you enjoy, you find interesting. All right, what purpose do you think that contemporary art has? Denise, what is contemporary art's purpose in your opinion?
We skipped another one questions about value. Will be contemporary artworks valued as much as classic?
True. I was actually thinking to move that later, but we can get to that one now. We can go in order if you prefer. Do you want to answer that one then, about the value?
To me, previous questions it's about value is more interesting because purpose of contemporary art we partially discuss in other questions.
Sure.
Like finding borders, trying to understand what art is. So yes, because part of artworks we define as contemporary art for museums are part of classic art. Classic art as a not classic as style, but classic as some very important steps for art evolution. And also most valuable classic art object is not about its famous or its pleasure to eye. It's more about some important steps of evolution art, of understanding what is possible or not, or understanding how to make art more expressible. So yes, we already have a numerous of contemporary artworks, which is already have a very important place in art evolution, and it's nowadays it's a valuable, incomparable level to a classic art.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I mean, that's, yeah. Ella, what do you think? Let's answer that question. Let's expand upon what Denise was saying there about the value of the classics and the contemporary works. Do you think that we're going to see that same value with the contemporary works of today as the traditional art has in museums now? What do you think?
I think that everything is important in each time. So classical art was important in that time, and now it is valuable, of course, and even much more valuable, perhaps, because it is time only adds value to masterpieces. Uh, but I think that modern art and contemporary art, it is also very valuable, and maybe more valuable because of the influence. And if it helps to make the whole world a little bit better, a little bit more honest, a little bit more open, so of course it is valuable. And it is why we do that, all that things, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the future will bring us. We don't know what will end up being of its value or what have you. But you know, my personal kind of take is that those classic pieces are going to stay and remain as value. The ones that are of value from this time period, it's just, you don't know. Just like, I don't know, 10 years ago, you didn't know which ones would maybe have lasting effect, or 20 or 50 years ago. So it's all kind of just waiting and seeing what is appreciated and what continues to be appreciated over time. You think about Andy Warhol's art, you know, that is still appreciated over time, and that is something that you can still see and people still seem to appreciate. So again, it's one of those things that we just have to sit back and see. All right, let's see. We've got about 13 minutes. I think we've got time to answer all four of the questions we have remaining. And I want to go back to that question that we were talking about. As you mentioned, Denise, we've talked about it, but I want to get into a little bit more detail about that purpose of contemporary art. What do you think that purpose is? I mean, is it just making us think? Is there something more? Do you think that there's something more that maybe we don't see? Because you've got a lot of background in this modern and contemporary art. So I'm wondering, I mean, maybe there's something else that you see when it comes to that purpose. Is there something that you think that it has that we haven't talked about yet?
There was some network glitches. Daniela, please repeat your questions. I listen only part of.
Sure. Yeah. Again, it was that question, the purpose of contemporary art. We talked about it before, but I was wondering if there's something else. I mean, you're very into this sort of era of art, and I was wondering if maybe there's something else that you know about, something else that you think is maybe worth being a purpose or talking about as a purpose of this contemporary art.
What is the purpose of?
Yeah.
I think I got questions, but I'm not sure that it's possible to create or extract some purpose of art, because really art, what we if we talk about art, we talk about numerous of different artworks, of some fundamental artworks, or even about some performance which is only short time and not reproducible artwork. So it's a we can point a questions like what is a purpose of art? What is complete purpose of art as a conception? The same answer would be for classic art or for contemporary art. Or we can try to find what is difference in trends and in understanding by human of classic and contemporary art. Or we can try to find any trends in art we have now in some directions on movement art in art around us. So to me it's hard to define purpose in context of art. It's probably near some kind about somewhere about searching of existence or of plot of art. What is it art? What is it art for people, for artists, for somewhere else?
Yeah.
What is art and what is not an art?
Definitely, definitely. I always think of it this way too. Art, literature, all these things. Just the fact that it is, I mean, to me, is a purpose, if that makes any sense. I know that as a literature major, we talked a lot about maybe a piece of literature. Is it political? Like, what's the political message? Is all literature from a certain time or a certain place political? And does it have to be political? Is there always that sort of political message? Is there always sort of that purpose or goal? And I think that if you look at artists themselves, what you really see is that they are creating for the sake of creating sometimes, They want to express themselves. They have an idea. What exactly is that purpose? Does that purpose change over time? Does that goal change over time? I think that these are such open-ended questions, but again, they make us think about not only the art itself, but the people creating the art, the time in which it was created, the people who view that art, who experience that art, who choose to patronize it. There's so many different factors involved. And I think that these are interesting things to discuss because, again, it's such a part of our culture. And I hope it continues to be. So I would say that when it comes to purpose of contemporary art, I think it's just, personally, my sort of opinion, the purpose of it is to have us continue to be interested in it, right? Not necessarily like it, not necessarily go to all the exhibits, but definitely to know that it's there, to know that this is part of the evolution of humanity, because our art is a reflection so much of who we are. Elia, what do you think? What do you think about that purpose of contemporary art?
I think that we can't speak only about purpose of that contemporary art because I think that the purpose of contemporary art is the same as the purpose of any art. If to my mind, I don't know. I think it is the purpose to make people tender, to give that ability to feel and to react, to think, to understand. And maybe in some ways it is the purpose of any art, just the attempt to visualize, to, I don't know, to materialize,
Visualize,
visualize,
materialize.
materialize the eternity. So because so time goes by, and but we need to, I don't know how to say it, to feel something which what is forever. So something very close to eternity. And I think that uh, maybe some hidden aim of any art just to materialize and to be close to the eternity.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, let's think. Let's think. We've got time for maybe. All right, judging from the video, all right, because I know you watched the video, Elia. I'm sure you watched it too, Denise. Do you think that art is a lost art? I mean, I think there was a lot of discussion about what classical art was and what contemporary art is. Denise, you said that you're very interested in this because you've got this friend and everything. I mean, but do you think that a lot of people are interested in art, both creating it and patronizing it? What do you think? I mean, do you think that people appreciate art these days?
It's a good question. Because art is a very wide conception. So even modern TV shows is also part of art. And people who created art are also inspired by contemporary art. So it's yes, not all of contemporary artworks are simple to understand by some people, but its influence on big amount of people indirectly. It's like when Impressionist appears, the most people think that it's very primitive and ugly pictures. But now we think that Impressionist is a part of classic art, really. So after some time, part of a thing we think provocative and hardly to understand in contemporary art will be also part of classic. It's similar to, I find very good set of interviews about Einstein's theory. And in early of 13, most of students perceive it as a very hard to understand, counterintuitive, and not looks like a somewhere from real world. But in the end of 20th century, the most even scholar students think in concept of relativism and perceive it as a fact, as a part of world around us. So many ideas appear as very hard to understand, but some of them become a part of our educational or our cultural or our aesthetic basis. So yes,
Yeah.
of course, part of contemporary art or even part of classic artworks is a lost thing. It's not it's not have no any valuable new ideas. It's only duplication or representation on some well-known and well-worked things, but and it not be a foundation of next generation of art. But at the same time, we have a set of artworks which be a part of next step of art, next step of our culture level and things like this.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's very interesting sort of insight. What do you think, Elia? What do you think about art? What do you think about our understanding of art, our appreciation of art? What are your feelings about it?
So it is very difficult to add something to Denise's words because I absolutely agree. Yes, so it is very close to that definition that art and the feeling of art, the understanding of art, very stays very close to education and to the level of education. So the more person educated, so the better he can understand in that very things of art. But it is not for certain, of course. But usually it goes like that, I think.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that there are people that appreciate and like art and go and see exhibitions and everything else, and there are people who think that they don't. They say, "Oh, art, no, that's boring." But the thing is, art is all around us. Art, of course, is in galleries and museums, but it's also in the photos that we take and share with others. It's in the buildings that we walk by and live in. It's how we decorate our surroundings. There's so much. Life is art, right? So I think that even though we aren't all studying art history, as you, Denise, we are appreciating art in one way or another. We are living art. We are all living art. It's part of what makes us human. It's the fact that we create things. It's the fact that we share things. The fact that we keep things and buy them, sell them, whatever you want to call it. That's all part of this art of being people. And it's been a really interesting discussion. Denise, this was a great idea for a discussion, this whole art thing. Thank you for this idea. Do we have any ideas for next time? We're going to be well into July. It's going to be on, what is it? It's going to be on the 4th of July, which is American Independence Day, guys. Do you want to talk about about American intervention in foreign policy? Or, I don't know, do you want to be political on an American holiday?
I think we can. Independence Day is a very, to my mind, interesting topic, because for the most countries have some holidays relevant to Independence Day, and there is very different meanings and different historical background for this holiday.
This is interesting. You want to talk then just about Independence Day, because in Russia you don't have, some people call it Independence Day, but it's not really Independence Day.
Every time I listen about Independence Day in Russia, I ask independence from
what?
Who?
From whom?
Yes, from what?
Right. Yeah, that's a good, I think I like that idea. What do you think, Ella? Should we talk about Independence Day?
Yes. Yes, I think it's a great idea, yes, to talk about independence in Russia especially.
Well, yeah, because it is. It's an interesting concept. So let's talk about that. We'll talk about, we can talk about American traditions. We can talk about the concept. We can talk about statehood, ideas of statehood, history of statehood. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting topic. So we'll come in with patriotism and objectivity. All right, guys?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. It was a very interesting topic today, and I look forward to seeing you same time, same place on Wednesday, the 4th of July.
Yes. Thank you, Daniela.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.